My name is Manny Abarca, and I'm the chair of the Jackson County Legislature, and I wanted to go over our agenda today before we start the legislative meeting. So on today's meeting, we will be meeting at the downtown county courthouse in Kansas City, Missouri. We will have a couple presentations before we start things off. First is a presentation by Stephanie Boyer, the CEO of Restart. I've asked her to come and talk to us about the affordable housing options she is putting in to help curb and offset some of the homelessness situations facing Kansas City and our region. So it'll be a great presentation by Ms. Boyer. Next, we'll be talking to our prosecutor, Melissa Johnson, and our combat director, Maury Wardard, to hear about the impacts combat has made over the years. As you may be aware, combat is up for renewal, and we are considering putting it on the ballot in November. So this presentation is critically important to us as we try and contemplate if this is something we want to put on the ballot today. We will move forward with our county executive reports, but we have a couple pieces of legislation that I think are prudent to talk about. 6050, which is the ordinance that would prohibit law enforcement officers from concealing their faces or badges during the performance of their official duties, and establish penalties and exemptions. This was an ordinance that I had introduced to talk about the impacts of ICE that we're having on our community at the time. Unfortunately, we have litigation that's still pending, I believe out of Minnesota, that we are waiting to hear the results from that. We have already passed a resolution dictating our intentions that we believe that some of these actions of ICE agents that are still in practice right now in Kansas City as late as last week are in violation of the U.S. Constitution. Although the litigation is in place in a different jurisdiction, it will have an impact on us in Kansas City and in Jackson County. So we're waiting for that litigation to be finalized before we take up this ordinance. We are on its 19th perfection, meaning we may have a couple more weeks to come, but I talked to our third-party attorneys today about it, and we are still pending the outcome of that litigation. Next, I wanted to talk about 6077. Several folks have talked about this ordinance, including the organization called Moore Square. This would establish a Bill of Rights of sorts for those who are incarcerated in our jail system. As some may have heard and read about, there were speculations that as we transitioned over to the new jail system, we had some serious issues where prisoners were being faced with not so great living conditions. We wanted to make sure as a legislative body that we put forward and make sure that there was a requirement for treatment of folks as they matriculate through this system, because everyone is innocent until proven guilty, and those that are visiting this facility deserve the rights and privileges and fair treatment of anyone. And so this is an ordinance that's currently stuck, unfortunately, because we've had an issue with folks showing up for our legislative meetings. And so we hope to take this off the agenda today. I know Moore Square will be glad to see this move forward as well, as those who may be experiencing some less than ideal conditions in our new facility. Lots of questions still to be answered there on our new facility. With the construction finally complete, there's a lot of initial issues with construction that we still have to navigate and work through to make sure that the warranty for that $300+ million facility are meeting the expectations of both the legislature and taxpayers who spent money on this facility. We have a couple more ordinances that talk about changes to our Unified Development Code, then public hearings that are going forward with those. And the way things usually work here in the legislature is that an ordinance can be introduced, a resolution can be introduced and sent to a committee where that can be worked out. All the kinks to issues, amendments can then come forward and out of committee with a recommendation or not, or just advance without a recommendation of committee to the legislature as a whole, for which then we would vote on an issue that week, perfecting it or advancing it by formally adopting it. Depending upon what it is, there's different levels of opportunity for us to have to meet. So we'll have some issues coming up on the zoning block that will make some changes to some areas and communities, and that's the next thing on the agenda. Talking about tax credits. This is something that I think the county executive has talked a lot about, and this is one of the reasons why we in fact chose county executive Phil Lavoda to fill the interim position as we had recalled Frank White, is because of the vision for this issue. What we want to make sure is that first and foremost, taxpayers get the breaks and receipt the dollars and credits that they deserve. What we don't want to do is negatively impact our taxing jurisdictions like schools, libraries, community college systems, fire districts, so much so that they're not able to do business. And so what we're trying to figure out going forward is the appropriate way to step forward, including all of those taxing jurisdictions, and making a clear plan for all of them to make sure we're not going to end up bankrupting school boards and school districts and closing classrooms because of this deferral program. We all understand, including myself personally, that we have to fix property taxes. That's not what we're trying to do. A delay at this point is not going to cause any difference. It's December that's really the difference maker here, that we need to work this out. I have vowed to invite taxing jurisdictions in to talk to the legislature specifically next week so that we can hear directly from them what ideas and solutions they have to not create these major gaps in our school systems that would otherwise cause pretty dramatic changes in the next upcoming school year. So we'll look forward to that passage hopefully next week after we get in more invitations from our taxing jurisdictions to come in and talk to us. But we also invite you all as the taxpayers to tell us directly what ideas you may have. We are a body of 9 here, and we don't pretend to have all the ideas, but we want to make sure that we've heard all the best ideas before making an action. One thing that's important to remember is that no matter what happens in this body, the next county executive and the next legislature has the ultimate ability to change things. And so we want to make sure that what we're planning for to be implemented next year is actually going to stick. And with a lot of changes from the legislative body to the executive, there's a lot of discussion happening there. So we want to make sure and do it right the first time and not have to go back to the drawing board once we realize this impact. This is multi-millions of dollars that are going to be reclawed back from the next distribution process coming next year. School boards have set or are setting their budgets now to look forward to that cycle and have counted on these dollars. We need to make sure that we're not causing harm in the future by taking a step in the wrong direction first. We also have a lot of pending litigation, including the 2 new lawsuits from Fort Osage and the city or the school districts and independents that has just come up, and we want to make sure and hear out all the impact that could have, in addition to the class action lawsuit that may also trigger additional settlements. So if we have all these 3 different competing interests all coming to a head at once, we may see ourselves in a situation where we've acted too much to give too many dollars out. And that's going to cause pretty dramatic impacts to our school districts, our libraries, who have banked on these dollars. I'm not vouching for them and what they should do in budgets. However, I am trying to look out for our school districts to make sure that we don't show up in August and classrooms are closed or school buildings are closed because of decisions that we've made here. So there's more thought that needs to be taken into consideration here. That's what I think we're trying to do with our colleagues, delaying this a little bit longer. Moving on, we have Ordinance 6090, which will establish a World War II memorial and monument. This is an incredible opportunity. Legislator Husky and I have been working on this for well over a year as we celebrated the 85th anniversary of the end of World War II. As we started to go down this project, we realized that Kansas City and in the region doesn't have a specific monument or memorial that celebrates all the contributions of those who served in World War II. This gives an opportunity for us to take pause and celebrate and honor those folks who served in Jackson County. We had a great opportunity in partnership with the Missouri Valley College and created a lot of information that we look forward to sharing in the dedication of this park. More to come on that topic. Next up is the potential discussion around authorizing a tax that would create a public transportation focus. Public transportation can be everything from buses to rideshare programs to light rail, streetcar, connecting communities across Jackson County and not pitting anyone against each other, but finally making sure that the county steps up to the plate as a leader role, bringing municipalities together beyond KCATA, but a clear funding source that allows folks to make decisions and create solutions for the needed efforts across city and county lines. This is a tremendous opportunity for us. You can look forward to seeing public town halls about this discussion across the county coming up. This is something that we want to send to voters to make sure that they weigh in and tell us if this is something valuable to themselves. And so this is something you'll see more about in the coming weeks. Next, we have on our agenda 6092, an ordinance that would appropriate $15 million from the undesignated fund balance and authorizing the county executive to actually create the distribution of infrastructure dollars to different municipalities. That is a great idea in concept. We need to make sure and realize it in the budget book itself. So we'll be working to try and finalize those details and not bankrupt the county as we lean forward into the other issues. Beyond that, we have the discussion around the renewal of the combat sales tax. That's something that we'll have the broad discussion about today and ensure that we put forward together for voters to vote on in the future. Finally, on our agenda is an authorization of our internship program. When I came to the Jackson County Legislature, we didn't have a formalized internship program, and I'm proud to say that my office has welcomed well over 10 interns both bilingual and not in our office, to give folks an opportunity to learn about the system. I believe nearly every legislature has utilized the internship program, and this ordinance would solidify that program, making a lasting effort connecting to young people beyond our tenure here. Finally, in the hopper for our final passages, we have a third-party monitoring program that would allow nonprofits and other partners to go and evaluate construction jobs with our county compliance office to ensure that the quality of materials and processes are being met. Something extremely important that I don't quite understand why my colleagues have delayed so long. The final thing on the agenda is the 180-day moratorium on data centers and battery energy storage systems. This is incredibly important for us to address, although it will not change the outcome of the independence decision that they had made previously. It is going to pause the opportunities for us to advance forward for data centers and battery storage systems throughout Jackson County going forward. This is incredibly important that we focus on today, and we have a slew of other resolutions and ordinances that we'll be introducing, but we'll bring those back up next week. So with that, that's your update going into the legislative meeting here at 3 o'clock. We'll make sure and tag the legislative office and share the link with you all so you can follow along in the process. Thanks for listening.